Hey everyone, welcome to the Fundamental Escape podcast. I'm your host, Mark Fitzgerald, and I'm here today with Lauren Southern, who is a contributor to Rebel Media. Do you want to introduce yourself there, Lauren?
Hello, yeah, that's a pretty good intro. I guess I've contributed to Rebel Media, the Libertarian Republic. I've written a couple articles for Spiked Online and have my own YouTube channel as well. Spend most of my time on Twitter, though.
Yeah. Awesome. Cool. So we are going to dive into, I guess, a huge subject that you often speak about and write about, which is feminism, more specifically third wave feminism.
Yeah.
And it's quite interesting just to start off for me. I started this podcast like 6 months ago, and it really wasn't heading in this direction at all in regards to the topic. I had a friend of mine who sort of got me onto both Gavin, Milo, and obviously yourself as well on YouTube. And it's really interesting for me, like, to be able to connect with all three of you actually in the same sort of period of time, because I found myself starting to become quite empathetic towards some of these sort of ideals. And then I started checking out your videos in specific, to what you're doing and things like that. And I started sort of realizing, oh my goodness, what is actually going on here? So I guess to open it up, like, if you could sort of summarize, I guess, what you do in general and why you do it, like, just for those who may be in the same boat that I was, who don't even really know what's going on, can you sort of summarize what keeps you busy in your sort of writing and your videos on YouTube and things?
Sure, I'll try to make it as brief as I can, but I'll start from the beginning still. When I was growing up, I'm still fairly young, so I kind of grew up in the generation where we had all of this social justice and feminist nonsense pushed on us. I literally took a social justice course in my grade 12 year, and I wasn't fully accepting this idea that I was a permanent victim. I didn't see it within my own life, and I didn't see it within the lives of the people around me. I remember in this social justice class I had to take in high school, they split us by gender to either side of the locker. They split us by race to either side of the locker. They split us by sexuality to either sides of the locker, and they told us, you are privileged and you are oppressed. And when I looked around at the people that I knew and had grown up with and had been in school with, this narrative that was being told to us of you are privileged and you are oppressed simply based on your skin color, simply based on your gender, simply based on your sexuality, that have really nothing to do with the individual, were not fitting. There were people on the oppressed side that had fantastic lives, that were very wealthy. There were people on the privileged side that I knew had struggled so much. And this emphasis on identity politics was so detached from the reality of situations that I just had to look into it more and challenge it. And feminism as of late has been one of these big identity politics issues, along with the racial one, that has impacted our culture. And the victim narrative that has been pushed on women is now becoming a self-fulfilling prophecy. Women were gaining tread and feet in society. They were beginning to bring themselves up, got the vote, all that, and now women are being constantly told that they are victims, and it's becoming a self-fulfilling prophecy. They are seeing the victim mentality everywhere they go, and eventually taking on that role of, I can't do anything because I'm just being harassed online all the time. I can't go into tech fields because that's all men and I can't be there. I'm going to go into gender studies instead, and they are putting themselves into situations that are far worse for women. Or the fact that women no longer want to become mothers and pursue that because feminism is telling them that's another way you'll be a victim. So don't do that. Don't pursue something that could definitely make you happy. And it's really just overall destroyed the relationship between the genders, been awful for women in general, and been completely detached from reality.
Yeah, absolutely. It almost feels like, this whole, I know, like, Milo talks about this sort of liberal ideology, which is like all about narrative over fact, and it seems like these people are trying to cast people into these roles, like you say, of these victim mentality. And like, I know you for one are not really playing that part too well.
No, I don't fit into their victim narrative because I don't let myself be a victim. Anyone can make themselves a victim. Anyone can play Sean King or Rachel Dolezal. It's become a competition to see who can become the best victim because you now get power out of that. you get leverage over other people by being a person that is supposedly socially oppressed. You can say, you fired me because I am this skin color or this gender, or you have to hire me because I'm this skin color or this gender. I'm allowed to comment on this topic because I have these physical prerequisites to comment on this issue, and you don't. Because you are white and cis, you cannot talk about this issue. And I guarantee eventually, I'm not sure if you've had it happen to you already, because you are white and male, you'll have people comment and say that. So if people make their identities on Twitter or Tumblr look like a Pokedex, if they have all of these different descriptions, these are my pronouns, they're now praising mental diseases, I am this, ADHD, autistic, these kind of things. They'll make a huge list so that they have more social leverage over you. I am more oppressed than you, therefore I have my opinion matters more than yours, and I have more of a right to comment on issues than you, which is totally ridiculous. It's the individual. The individual should be able to comment on anything. More individuals may have more experience in a certain subject. It doesn't make them more right.
Yeah. I guess just to clarify, I suppose it does go without saying, but if it's not clear already, you do not identify as a feminist, correct?
No, I do not identify as a feminist.
I just wanted to just wanted to make that clear to the listeners. I came across a few articles. It's been interesting because obviously here in New Zealand, I'm actually, I'm campaigning at the moment to try to get Milo over here. I told him he needs to come and save us from all this craziness that's happening. And I was quite oblivious to a lot of it. And obviously leading up to this conversation, I started doing a bit of research in regards to feminism here in New Zealand, because I was like, is it really kind of heading in the same direction as, the UK and the US and things? I was like, it seems kind of like it is, and it's quite terrifying. But I actually came across a few articles. So there was a headline in the Daily Dot, I believe it is. It's about yourself. It says, meet the Canadian college student who's about to be the next enemy of the feminist movement. So it's, it's quite interesting. And then there was actually on change.org, I'm sure you're already aware, there's a remove Lauren Southern as a candidate for their party. It's been up for like 6 months and it's had just over 500 supporters. The first comment, which I thought was hilarious, the top comment said, it says, because God forbid anyone have an opinion different to my own.
Right. No, it was hilarious. They created that to try and get me removed, and it got a decent amount of signatures, but then it just started getting filled with people who were like, this is nonsense, and signing it just so they could comments like that.
Yeah.
Also, another petition was created that said, and the people who created this slut walk are trying to remove Lauren through this petition, and that signature got 3 times, or that petition got 3 times the signatures the one to remove me got. So the one supporting me got far more signatures, which was very, it was very good. That was a bad time for me because it was the first time I had really kind of challenged feminists up front and in their face in public, and they had kind of discovered me, and I was just getting so many online messages just absolutely barraged. This petition was created. I didn't have very many followers on Twitter at that time, so all I was getting were messages hating on me and messages to my Facebook inbox, just calling me awful names. And I was totally fine. Like, it wasn't...
Yeah.
I'm not about to cry to the UN like Anita Sarkeesian about cyberbullying, but...
Yeah, those are your victim bargaining chips,
Yeah.
So, I came across, there was obviously that photo that you posted a few years back about, not needing feminism because you believe in equality, not entitlement and supremacy, sorry. And I found an article in relation to that photo, and I actually came up with the term, often feminists talk about that whole concept of mansplaining. So I think this article has a bit of Lawrence-splaining happening in it, where they're basically trying to speak on your behalf and telling you that you really are a feminist, you just don't understand it, sort of thing. And
I get that all the time.
Yeah.
I have lots of people make videos about that. You're really a feminist, Lauren. No, listen. And you know what? Some of them, sure, based on your arbitrary definition of feminism, I am a feminist then, because I support both genders. However, that is not the popular definition of feminism. That is not the mainstream definition of feminism. That is not what the current leaders of the feminist movement are speaking on, whether it be Andrea Dworkin or Bell Hooks. So I'm going to base my definition and my commentary of feminism on this mainstream version of feminism that the philosophers are basing on, the books my gender studies course are talking about. I'm going to talk about this one, not the little random specks of feminists that do have it right, technically, that have figured out that both genders matter, that have figured out that feminism has gone too far. Your Christina Hoff-Sommers and your nice feminists that aren't really involved in the movement too much. I'm not talking about that when I discuss feminism. People get mad at me because I use it as a blanket term, but clarified this many times.
I guess, no, that's a great point. And I suppose I would want to make as much distinction as possible just so we're clear what we're talking about here and what we're actually against. You mentioned the word slut walk, and I'm pretty sure some of the listeners would have been like, whoa, what is that? I had no idea what they were. Can you explain like the origin of what a slut walk is and where it started and how you eventually got kicked out of one?
Right. So the slut walk was one of the first, it has been the feminist event that I've been going to for the past bit. I've made 3 videos on it, and a slut walk is essentially where a bunch of women go to a public space and walk in their underwear to protest rape culture and women being blamed for rape because of what they wear. It started because a police officer in Toronto, Canada, told a girl who was assaulted, I believe I might have the story wrong, but she told some girl that they should cover up or asked her about what she was wearing. Basically, essentially victim blamed and said, it happened to you because of what you were wearing. The story is more complicated than that, and people would have to look it up. But one incident in Toronto, and these girls are saying, we now live in a rape culture, and women are always blamed for being raped for wearing clothes, which rarely happens, and it never holds up in a court of law. If someone in a court of law said, well, what was she wearing? Oh, she was wearing a tight dress, therefore it's okay that he raped her. That would never hold up in our legal system. So, but basically that's what these feminists are rallying against. They go out in their underwear and say, we are protesting the fact that this happens and protesting rape culture. So I disagree with the fact that this happens that this happens commonly. And I disagree with the fact that we live in a rape culture. I don't believe that in general our culture supports rape. I don't believe that we live in a culture that dismisses rapists and high-fives them and supports them. And that's what some of these feminists who go to these slut walk believe. They truly have been indoctrinated to the point where they believe that our culture supports rapists, that our culture will not stand up for them if they are assaulted, that our culture thinks it's okay to shame women for being raped because they got too drunk or because of what they are wearing. These things that are mentioned are really simply precautions that police have given based on previous statistics that have shown women are more likely to be assaulted if they dress a certain way, if they don't go out with friends to the bar, and if they drink too much. These are things that have statistics to back them up, that have been known to be precautions women should take in order to not be assaulted. But slut walks protest women being told to take those precautions.
Yeah. It's pretty crazy. And I guess, when we're starting to even to bring up a word like rape, it's a pretty heavy subject, obviously. And, one of the things, like even in my conversation with Gavin, we were talking about how the definition of rape and sexual assault has been so broadened that it's actually diminishing real cases and real victims.
Well, that's why I had my sign if people want to look it up, Lauren Southern and Milo Yiannopoulos at the Amber Rose Slut Walk. I'm sure if you just type some of those phrases in Google, it'll come up. I was holding a sign that said, regret is not rape. Because I've asked some of these people at these slut walks, and you can watch it, that genuinely believe that consent can be taken away, that genuinely believe that if a guy says he's the quarterback and not second string on a football team, that it's suddenly rape because he lied to you.
Yeah.
And these are their definitions. They have been redefining language to the point that they can make everyone a victim, which is exactly what I have a problem with as well. When you say rape culture is another definition they have redefined and trivialized when they say a man whistling at you on the street, which almost every single feminist at a slut walk gives me this example. Rape culture is men whistling at you when you're on the street. Well, why would you call that a rape culture? Is that rape? No, maybe a whistling culture, sure, it would be,
Whistling culture.
but it's certainly not a rape culture. That is trivializing a world that someone would legitimately live in where they will be stoned to death for the crime of being raped, and it's a horrific thing to live in. And the fact that you think being whistled at or being told to maybe put on a pair of pants before you go out, it's just ridiculous, and I completely oppose it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's getting pretty crazy, and I mean, I know even Milo brings up the whole, the examples of these rape allegations that have been debunked and fallen apart, like Rolling Stone and all that sort of thing, and I love how he says, that you can't solve a problem when you lie about it in your first sentence, right?
Yes.
I think that's really important to kind of state. And I think, a lot of these, here's one of the sort of things I'd be keen for you to reflect on or give your feedback, because I think a lot of, I feel like it's almost like a lot of these people who identify as feminists don't even really know what they're aligning with. Do you think that's kind of what's happening in some ways?
Yes, and I think that's why you're starting to see a huge disconnect and disproportionate amount of women starting to reject feminism, and why you're seeing the rise of women against feminism, because they're seeing the leaders of these movements and feminists continually saying things that are just making them kind of tilt their head and say, wait, what? I don't support that. I don't support Bahar Mustafa saying hashtag kill all men and white men are not allowed in my safe space. I don't support Andrea Dworkin or other feminists exaggerating that men are rapists. I don't support these exaggerations that are going on right now. And
Yeah.
unfortunately, a lot of women right now are still being conditioned to believe that these are just crazy exaggerations of feminism. And whenever someone tells you that, they just are anti-woman. And this is what I've been told in my gender studies class, at least, and the girls in my class. And that
Yeah.
these problems are actually huge problems, that 1 in 4 women are still assaulted on campus, and anyone who tries to dispute that fact just hates women and is a filthy men's rights activist.
Yeah.
So there are still a lot of women being indoctrinated to believe that, but because of the ridiculousness that is being exposed, because of all these false rape claims, you're starting to see this pushback happen, which is excellent, but I don't know if it's going to be good enough because of how systematic this problem is becoming, because of how ingrained in the education system feminism is.
Yeah, well, I think some of these ideals have been bandied around like for so long and so loudly that it's hard to challenge in some ways, I think, in regards to obviously here in New Zealand, we have a campaign that kicked off a little while ago. It's basically called My Body, My Terms, and I just had a look at their website. Basically, it was a whole bunch of essentially B grade New Zealand TV actors campaigning in this thing, and they're essentially on. They did these commercials on TV, and they're all basically just standing there naked, just covering themselves, and like they've just got this hashtag My Body, My Terms written all over themselves. And, just there's a kind of a bullet point list here on their website, and I was quite keen for you to weigh in on it. But it basically says, rather than telling potential victims how to avoid being raped, we need to talk openly about consent and encourage people to engage in a sexual encounter to make absolutely sure their partner is consenting. Consent needs to be freely and enthusiastically given, not coerced. If you're not sure whether your partner is consenting, stop. Even there, I'm like, who needs to be told that? Seriously, like.
No, it's nonsense. It's absolute nonsense. No rapist is going to stop raping because
and then so it goes on. I don't think I'll necessarily read all these things here, but it basically says things like really oversimplistic truth. Like the person to blame is for a rape is the rapist. It's never the victim's fault and things like that. It's like, well, who's going to argue with that? And I think that's where I nearly got really roped into a lot of these things. But then the thing that sort of makes me laugh a little bit is at the very end, because they're trying to claim this equality thing, like this is about men and women, right? But clearly 99% of this is, in relation to women. And then at the very end, they just say the last point says, because it talks about men and women not being called sluts and whores and things like that, and then it says at the very end, men who take pose or share intimate pictures of themselves do not deserve to be ridiculed. And I'm just like, wow, this is like, it's almost like at the very end, someone's like, we better put something in here relating to men, you know?
Yeah, or the MRAs will be mad.
Yeah, it's just like,
Go
it's
to the bottom.
crazy. It's totally
We don't
crazy.
want to, but I guess we will.
Yeah. So
Um,
I'm curious to sort of know in what you do in interacting with these, in my opinion, pretty out there sort of people. Actually, before I forget, there was one thing that just blew my mind. It's on one of the videos to do with the slut walks. And there's a guy who basically says to you, essentially, every rape allegation should be believed by definition.
yes.
I was like, what are you talking about? That's
There are people that
insane.
tweet at me all the time as well that say it is awful. This is the problem. They believe we live in a rape culture because we investigate rape cases. We live in a rape culture because we don't believe every single victim. The fact that we make sure that men are actually guilty of a crime is rape culture, because they'll always cite, look at how few rapists actually go to prison, and they never consider the fact that these are alleged rapists. They just refer to them as rapists. These men could be completely innocent men that were falsely accused, or like the man the other day who was just released from, what was it, something like 10 to 16 years in prison because the blood tests were wrong, and he spent time in prison, didn't get to see his daughter grow up because he was falsely accused of rape, or wasn't falsely accused, but the blood tests were wrong and he wasn't actually a rapist. It's the policy is now guilty until proven innocent, not the other way around. Just every code of law has realized that it's a flawed and ridiculous policy. That's the exact same thing you're seeing with these consent forms. If on campuses, the new law under affirmative consent, which is the law in New York now, or yes means yes in California for campuses, you are under the burden of proving that you got consent rather than the other person proving that they raped you. It's so easy to create these false allegations that will be left on your school or university record forever deeming you a rapist. And it's horrifying for these young men on campuses, quite frankly, who I've already seen people saying they don't want to engage in sexual things on campus because to the extent that these laws, if you grab a girl's hand because you think you're on a cute date, you think she's into it, she could go to her campus and say, he assaulted me by grabbing her hand.
I mean, you sort of, sometimes you find yourself, you see some of these things happening, and your initial reaction is to laugh, but then you stop and think, and you're like, this is terrifying, right?
It's very, very sad because especially when we live in a world where you see women, especially, looking towards these romantic figures like Noah from, what's the movie? Oh, I've got The Notebook. Noah from The Notebook, who romantically grabs Allie towards the end scene and kisses her without any consent forms or affirmative and all the girls swoon and cry in the movie and love it. Why isn't my life and my romance exactly like that? Why isn't it like all these romance movies where the strong man just grabs me and sweeps me off my feet and kisses me? Well, it's because you're now asking for consent forms, and men are damn afraid to kiss you in case you scream rape.
So Lauren, are we saying now that movies like The Notebook are going to need trigger warnings, or?
You think so, yes. But it's exactly that. And young boys, I wouldn't be surprised how confused they are. I remember maybe it was a year or two ago, I went out with a guy, and he turned to kiss me, and I moved my face because I didn't want to kiss him. And he was so apologetic after. He was like, I'm sorry, I didn't realize you didn't want to kiss. I didn't realize you were into it. So apologetic. I felt so bad. Oh, imagine if that happened to a feminist. You were trying to assault me. That was rape. This poor guy felt so bad.
It would get awkward, to say the least.
Genuinely misread the signals. And that happens. That is reality. And these laws and these expectations are not based off reality. They are based off some authoritarian feminist world where all men are sexual predators looking to harass and assault women, which is just not true.
So this was something a friend of mine actually sent me. This is an article from in New Zealand just from this week, actually. It's a campaign that was called Free the Nipple, and it's basically, it says 40,000 nipples were expected to be bared, but only 26 showed up. So this was a campaign that was started earlier in the year. They had 20,000 Facebook attendees register, and only 13 people showed up. So it just seems crazy. It seems like there's this real sort of small minority that are trying to come across like they're speaking up for the masses, and they're just clearly not.
Well, that's exactly what happened at Amber Rose. There were supposed to be thousands who showed up. There were a couple hundred. And even the narrative in the media, I can't remember exactly. I think it might have been CNN or Time, but there was a news outlet that reported that there was something like a couple thousand, 5,000 women that showed up to the Amber Rose event, which was just insane. And Milo wrote an article saying, I was there, hello.
Yeah.
But you're right, they want to... it is a small minority of crazies that are leading the movement, but the problem isn't that it's a small minority of crazies. The problem is that you don't have the majority of the movement questioning them.
Yeah.
And you don't, because they'll always say, oh, I'm not like that, or most feminists aren't like that, but why aren't you actively questioning them? Why does Feminist Frequency have 500,000 Twitter followers? Why do these crazy feminists have thousands of people that read their books and are supposedly moderates? Like,
yeah.
It's
well, I mean, going back to that campaign, the My Body, My Terms, I mean, I tweeted the girl who founded the organization, and she replied and basically came to a conclusion without any evidence at all that I wasn't up for reasonable discussion. And I was like,
right.
Okay, so you don't want to talk to someone that disagrees with you clearly. And they don't. That's the point, right? They don't want to hear the other side. They don't want to know, evidence. They don't like the facts, as Milo says.
That's where trigger warnings have come about. That's where safe spaces have come about. That's where cyber violence has come about. Someone calling me stupid online is violence and needs to be stopped by the UN. I need a safe space from other opinions. I need trigger warnings on content that I disagree with. I've said this on another live stream, but I had a girl stand up in my women's studies class and literally freak out saying, why do you always have to disagree with the professors? Your opinions make me afraid to come to class. Leave them to class.
Be careful, that's crazy.
Make me afraid. And that's the society and culture we're living in, where people literally equate what I say to violence. There was a paper written by Trent University, Arthur, I believe it was, that's the paper name, that said said the word violence, referring to some things I said to them 26 or 27 times. They're equating words to violence. They're equating words to threatening, and not even threats, just disagreement.
Yeah. Yet hashtags like kill all white men are totally fine.
Oh yes, of course. That's just an experiment. That's a thought experiment.
It's very subjective. I guess just to drive the point home a little bit as to why I am so passionate about getting a conversation like this out. Because, I mean, you can laugh. I mean, just to make the point, I found out recently that apparently clapping is triggering. So people snap instead of clapping.
Yes,
which is just ludicrous. But on a serious side, you've got professors and people in professional positions losing their jobs over some of these issues, right?
Mm-hmm.
Which is, yeah.
Yeah, all over the place right now. And luckily, I feel like it's finally being exposed. You're having videos like the one of Melissa Click come up showing the silencing and the utter insanity that is going on campuses right now. And I'm hoping that we're coming to a point where people just completely reject this regressive progressivism. And I feel like it's finally coming to a point where more and more people are realizing. However, like I said, it is still very much so a part of the establishment, a part of the media and education system, but there are more people pushing back. The biggest problem I have with this isn't even the insanity of the few people that bothers me. It's the effect that it's having on the vast majority of people. You have these feminists that come in and believe what they think is best for themselves, which I don't even agree is best for themselves, is best for the majority of women. You don't want to be despite what all statistics and all data shows, you don't want to go into social things. You don't want to go into arts. You don't want to be a mother. You need to go into STEM fields so we can close the wage gap. You need to go become a scientist so that I can feel better about my world. I'm not going to do it. I'm going to go into gender studies. But all you other ladies, you have to go into sciences so I feel better about the world right now.
Yeah.
And it's telling women that they are the exact same as men as well, which just quite frankly isn't true. And it's leaving women feeling somewhat empty, I believe. You're seeing women's happiness levels completely decline since the rise of third wave feminism, and seeing them be completely detached and pushed away from men, and men and women just, their gender relations being destroyed, and men and women build each other up. I think they very much so need each other. And like, I'm not necessarily saying go back to traditional gender roles, but some women are happier that way. Some women do want to have kids. Some women are being literally forced into these STEM fields and being told their whole life, go into STEM fields, go into sciences and maths and do this because that is where women should be. We're hiring 2-to-1 women over men in sciences now. We will give you scholarships for all of this. And despite all of that, despite saying women and men have the exact same brains and gender is a social construct, women are still choosing to go into more social sciences and all these different things. This modern feminism is completely detached from reality, and it's not solving the problems it claims to be solving either. It may bring awareness to rape and sexual assault. I would call it more fear-mongering than awareness, but I'd say it has, I know this is going to sound crazy, but I'd say slut walks have been the cause of more sexual assaults than...
Yeah, I don't think that's too far from reality to say that at all.
Yeah, they've been the cause of more sexual assaults than they've prevented. Why? Because you're seeing the facts that have been brought out by the police saying you take these preventative measures, you will be less likely to be sexually assaulted and raped. And these women saying directly, do not listen to these prevention methods. These are victim blaming. Oppose these. You look at the men who created the nail polish at this university in California, I believe it was, to detect if there was rape drug in your drink. An amazing invention. Thank goodness, could stop lots of rapes. And feminists opposed it. They called it victim blaming. How dare you expect women to paint their nails to check if there was a drug in their drink?
My goodness.
And they're literally actively campaigning against things that can prevent rape.
Yeah.
And prevention will always be better than cure-all in a case where you cannot find a cure-all. You cannot find a cure-all for murder. You cannot find a cure-all for theft. You cannot find a cure-all for rape. You're not going to advise someone to carry a $100 bill or their wallet on a string a foot behind them or a meter behind them because that would be foolish. And if their wallet got stolen or their money got stolen, it wouldn't be their fault. However, they would be an idiot to think it wouldn't be stolen by dragging it on the ground behind them. There are things you can do to prevent these things from happening and things you can do to be safe. And feminists are directly opposing all of the things we have discovered as prevention methods in the past that have worked.
Yeah. I guess I'm curious to ask as well, in regards to what you do in the videos, and I mean, obviously you've mentioned the sort of negative comments that I guess go without saying, but I mean, surely... And I asked Milo the same sort of question was, are you starting to get feedback from people who are starting to become aware of what you're doing and sort of have this awakening of like, holy crap, what am I doing?
A few. I think most of the people that we're winning over are what would I say? I'd say they're the people that are undecided and on the fence, and those are the people we're going to be most likely to convince. And the feminists, every once in a while, will come over and admit they were wrong. Unfortunately, I've seen it before where feminists will come back and they'll get a lot of backlash that, oh, you were wrong, which I think is completely wrong, and I don't think that's any way to win over the other side. However, I'd say most of the people are the people that are on the fence or simply just questioning and looking for answers and not the radicals. The radicals are going to be the most stubborn and sending themselves into safe spaces and blocking you. But it does happen.
Yeah. I sort of just wonder, like, because I'm trying to sort of play devil's advocate in my head and sort of understand the impulses behind these people that go down this sort of path. And I'm just like, surely, I guess we could agree, like, there are things on the surface, like issues like sexual assault and things like that, clearly are things that we want to see reduced. That goes without saying. But, the obviously the methods that are being employed to stop it are just absurd. And I just sort of wonder, is it even possible to, to sort of get through to some of these ideals and these people?
Well, here's the problem. The problem is you've got two options for your regular, especially this is especially for women. You've got two options. You've got one that says you are responsible for your own actions. You need to educate yourself. You need to own up to what you do. You need to work hard and base your work on merit. The world is a tough place for all of us. Suck it up. Let's go. Let's look at the facts. And then you've got the other side that says, you've had a hard time. Come here. You're a victim. It's not you. It's the world around you. It's men. It's all of these other things. And it's so much easier for people in general to have an external locus of control than an internal one and blame all of their problems and their failures on the world than themselves. And you've got one option that's basically the what is it? The reality check saying you need to deal with your own issues, you're responsible for your own actions, that people like to ignore. And then you've got the other option that is this safe space, that the tough world around you. Come here, join our safe space, complain and whine until you get what you want. You deserve this job. You deserve all these things simply because of your skin color or gender. Which are you going to take if you are a woman?
Yeah.
Which are you going to take? That's the real question.
Yeah.
If I just think I have the personality type. I've always said I think I have a male brain. I think I have the personality type where I just, and there are a few other women like this as well, and more women rising up going on. But I don't want to be a professional victim. I don't see that as something that is liberating or something that should be looked up to. I'd feel dirty acting like a professional victim, asking for money on Patreon.
Since you brought up the whole male brain thing, we did have that conversation on Twitter, and I just wanted to clarify on my friend's behalf, she is now a supporter of what you do. She's watched some more videos and she's like, no, Lauren's cool.
Oh, really? Oh, cool.
She's actually a really reasonable person. I think she more or less said that to me. We have these really interesting conversations, and I think it was more about disagreeing for the sake of disagreeing, but she's like, no. She's a fan, so I just have to clear that up. But I guess in winding down, there was a friend of mine actually who sort of commented on Facebook in regards to this whole sort of feminist ideal of like, we're all equal, treat us the same. And it wasn't that long ago I came across these pretty crazy videos on YouTube of basically these women who are in these kind of conflicts with men, and they're essentially arguing and fighting, and so the woman hits the guy, and then the guy basically thinks, well, if you want to be treated the same, I'll treat you the same, and he like hits her back directly, like basically punches her in the face. And I'm just like, is that what you want to be happening? Like, is that the equality you're searching for?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, it's interesting because you've got the whole treat us the same but treat us different. Treat us the same but make sure you have a UN category just for women. Treat us the same but make sure you have scholarships just for women. Treat us the same but make sure you accept more women into certain fields, right? So it's treat us the same unless it benefits us, which what I find is what happens.
Yeah.
They'll never complain about if they pay lower insurance rates on cars. That's a good thing. They will certainly complain if more men are hired in a certain field, despite the fact that they're hiring based on merit, which is completely fair. They'll never complain that most garbage men are men. they'll never ask the gap between male and female garbage workers. They want to be in air-conditioned offices. It's genius. There's a global conspiracy of a matriarchy to get women all in power positions, nice offices, and do no work. They're on an excellent trajectory, but it's not the one for equality.
Yeah. Yeah, well, there's a couple of things there. I mean, you mentioned the whole, I know Milo talks about it as well, just the irony of the whole, like, Patreon idea where these women who are wanting to sort of argue against patriarchy are just essentially being funded by men.
Well, it was hilarious when we were at the slut walk and all of these ladies, call the police, get the police here to kick her out.
Get the patriarchy.
Patriarchy to kick out a woman.
Yeah. It's pretty crazy. It's pretty selective. So, yeah, I guess just in sort of winding down, like I say, I'm really grateful to be able to talk to you today. It's amazing. But like, what's next for Lauren? Like, what's happening in your world? It seems like you are starting to get more of a voice and people are starting to listen. So it seems pretty hopeful.
Well, honestly, I'm just coming out with a video tomorrow morning, which will probably be a few days ago once you get this podcast up.
Yeah.
That is talking about refuting the notion that women are mistreated by games advertising. There was a video that came out saying that the only reason women are playing Counter-Strike all day like men is because video game companies don't advertise to women. I refute this and I do a video so I'm going to continue making videos exposing the narrative that is being told, and I'm hoping eventually to be able to debate some higher up feminists in the movement to kind of disprove and challenge their ideas, and I'm hoping to be given opportunities to do that. Yeah.
I suppose in closing, I just want to throw the idea out that, for people that do listen to this and maybe profoundly disagree with you for whatever reasons, I hope that people can at least see what you're doing and think, good, somebody's allowed to have a different opinion, right? Like, I think it's just crazy. And I think that's why, the likes of Gavin and Milo and yourself are starting to get more of a voice, because in a world that's kind of become so disconnected and so like just fed these narratives and told not to question them, you come along and just have a different opinion, and it's sort of enough to build a platform, it seems.
Mm-hmm. No, definitely. And I have, it's actually hilarious. Despite my online persona, most of my friends are very, very left-wing, and a lot of them are feminists, and we love debating. I love them because they're a minority of people who genuinely do respect and want to defend the free speech of other individuals. They are what I would call cultural libertarians. The people who believe in everyone's right to hold their opinion and aren't trying to silence it because they disagree with it.
Yeah.
And are willing to have that debate instead of just blocking and going to their safe spaces. Unfortunately, I don't think they are the heads or leaders of mainstream feminism right now, but it would be really cool if that happened to feminism, because damn it, feminism needs a reformation or it needs to be abandoned. It's not going in a good direction.
And I guess just in closing, if anyone's wondering what a safe space is, I just refer you back to my conversation with Milo, because he kind of elaborated on it. It was quite interesting. But thanks so much, Lauren. It's been really cool to chat to you today. So thanks. Keep doing what you're doing. It's awesome.
Excellent.
Cool.
Thank you.